morning, everyone. And we are here in the offices of Payac, and we're delighted to be with you, Seamus, here this morning. And thanks very much for taking time out of your busy morning to talk to us on this International Fraud Awareness Week.
Oh, you're very welcome, Bernie. Yeah,
Thank you, Seamus.
Nice to have you.
That's good. Delighted to be here. Seamus, we'll, just for our followers and members that are watching, we're trying to give them some advice and some tips from industry experts, and you being one on the payments and cards area. What type of trends are you seeing at the moment in terms of fraudulent activity around cards and payments?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I suppose, first of all, International Fraud Awareness Week is there for a reason, because obviously consumers are spending a lot of time focusing on getting ready for Christmas, and it's a time of year when people are doing a lot of spending. It's also a time of year when people are very busy. So it's the time of year, unfortunately, where people can make mistakes or they can maybe make decisions or share information that they wouldn't normally share because they're busy and they're trying to prepare for Christmas. So I suppose at a general level, what I would say is if you see unsolicited communications coming in, particularly on WhatsApp or other channels or on email with links that you're not familiar with, definitely check twice. Don't share your details with any merchant unless you're very familiar with it. In terms of online purchases, always make sure that the website that you're purchasing from is a reputable website and that it's a genuine website. So there's lots of very reputable merchants who, unfortunately, their websites have been cloned by bad actors who have created websites that look very similar to brands that we'd be very familiar with.
And just on that point, Seamus, how do we recognise a reputable website?
So I suppose the first thing I'd say is when you're going in, don't necessarily take the link through a search engine. Go directly into the website itself and have a look at the very start of the address on the browser to see that it's HTTPS rather than just HTTP. So HTTPS means that it's a secure link. That means it's getting you directly through to the genuine merchant, rather than an unsecure link where a third party may have access to that information.
That's a very good point.
Yeah. I suppose another bit of advice I would say is, if it sounds too good to be true, if the offer is too good to be true, then sometimes 9 times out of 10 it probably isn't. It's advice we suppose we were all given. It hasn't changed. That's the same advice we were all given 30 years ago. But definitely, if there's special offers there and those special offers seem too good to be true, they generally are.
They generally are. Yeah. And going back to other types of fraud trends that you would see.
I mean, the Dear Mom and Dad is a great one, where you get an unsolicited WhatsApp message telling you that, from a child or a relative or a friend saying that I've lost my phone, this is my new number, and then asking for you to share information because the person's phone or their wallet has been stolen. And in those situations, we would generally advise ring the person. If that person knows you well enough to ask you for money, to ask for your details, they should be able to pick up the phone to you. You should be able to pick up the phone to them. So rather than texting back and sharing information that shouldn't be shared, make sure and check. A very simple phone call to somebody can save a lot of money and a lot of heartache.
Very good. And we actually had that case. So I suppose when that happened in Roscommon Credit Union, the member was still in the office when they tried to make contact with their child to see, I'm after transferring that money. Now that happened within a minute, so we were able to get back and get onto yourselves and get the payment stopped. Would you be able to hazard a guess, Seamus, as to what the window is there for somebody executing a transaction and getting to stop it, or is that a fair question?
It's probably difficult to say, because it depends on what they're going to do with that money and how how the transaction has been initiated, whether it's been done through a card payment, which can be instant, or whether it's been done through a bank transfer, where you may have the opportunity to recover the funds. At a general level, I'd say just do it really quickly. If a member feels that they have done something and they're questioning it afterwards, don't be ashamed. Pick up the phone. Credit unions have the best in class fraud systems, but nobody is 100% insulated from fraud. And if somebody is hit at a time when they're really busy or they're distracted with somebody else, we can all make mistakes. So we hope people don't make mistakes, and this is important. And what you're doing here is really important in heightening awareness. But if anybody feels at any stage that they have done something that they want to question, well, you're fortunate enough that you have a credit union that you can walk down the road to, that you can pick up the phone to, that you can call into at any time, and they're there to support you. So the earlier the better. I certainly wouldn't be sitting on your hands and saying I must go into the credit union tomorrow. I'd absolutely contact them at the earliest possible opportunity.
And Seamus, now that we're aware SEPA Instant is only around the corner, and that's going to be here come January, the payment is going to go to Europe within 10 seconds.
Yeah. So at a European level, there is various different new fraud prevention measures being introduced in order to protect consumers around fraud. Due to the instant nature of money movement with SEPA Instant. So one of those things is verification of payee. So the consumer will be given the opportunity to go and verify who the other account holder is. That'll be a significant prevention and protection for consumers. The second element is actually fraud engines that are there in the background to detect anomalies. So I suppose from a consumer perspective, it's important to note that the introduction of instant payments is actually a really, really positive thing. It means that people can move money really, really quickly. And, at a European level, both from a regulatory perspective and an industry perspective, institutions are making sure that they have the best-in-class tools and fraud prevention measures in place ahead of the introduction of SEPA Instant to make sure that consumers are protected.
And I suppose, Seamus, that brings me on to the next question. I suppose people watching us here now have businesses of their own. They might be running community club accounts. There could be sole traders. There could be anything there in the mix. How do we make sure we're still providing a good personal service as well as maintaining fraud prevention measures within our payment system?
Well, I don't think it's an either or. I think that part of a good personal service is ensuring that you take your customers' data very seriously, and that you respect the fact that when consumers are spending money with you, that's hard-earned money, and that you're not exposing that customer to any fraud. So, for example, if you are a sole trader and you're running online shopping, if you've got a merchant account where you're selling your wares or your services online, you have an obligation to ensure that you have systems and controls in place to make sure that that environment is safe and that any information you're collecting off your consumers, whether it be card-based information, bank details, etc., that's held in very safely and very securely. So I would say to anybody who is involved in online merchant, running a small business is tough, it's expensive, and it requires a lot of bravery, but it also requires a commitment to make sure that you do protect your consumers. So if you take card details, for example, that you're PCI compliant, which is an industry standard, PCI DSS compliant, and that if you're using third parties to avail of services such as accepting payments online, that whoever the third parties that you're using are also maintaining PCI DSS compliance, and that also that your environment where you're holding your database for your customers is robust and secure, so that people can't go in and hack the system.
No, that's very good, Seamus. Thanks. I suppose bringing it back a little bit now and simplifying it. I myself had one of my cards. I don't know what happened to it, whether it was skimmed or cloned or whatever, but I ended up with a gym membership in Guildford in England. Now, not to mention
bit of a commute now for the gym.
Never having a gym membership, never mind in another country. How do you think that might have happened?
It's hard to say, but it's likely that your details were harvested through some genuine transaction, but that either that was then got into the hands of a bad actor who then used those details for what they call a payment on file. That was most likely how it happened. Or you shared details with a spurious website. It's likely to have been one of those two. Okay. What I would say is, if you are going online, do make sure that and check that. But just because you may give over details, they could wait 3 or 6 months before they could store that information for 3 or 6 months before they go and attempt to do a transaction on your account. Okay. Now, there are protections, and there's constantly additional protections being put in place. So, for example, if you go in and do an e-commerce transaction or an online transaction with an account in the credit union, for example, there is push notifications and protections there built into the app so that the cardholder will have to go in and authorize those payments. And a lot of financial institutions now would adopt those policies. And sometimes that might, from a consumer's perspective, be, oh, this is an extra piece of work that I have to do now. I have to go, I'm online doing something, and now I have to run across the room to get the mobile phone to do a password or to put my credentials into the phone. And that can be an inconvenience, but it's been there to protect your funds.
Absolutely.
It's been there to make sure that you don't end up having to put that phone call through, which is a horrible phone call, unfortunately, people have to do sometimes, where they have to pick up the phone and say, I did something, I didn't realize what I've done here, and unfortunately money has now gone out of my account.
Yeah.
So those measures are all there to protect cardholders.
No, that's great. And I think even us as a credit union in Roscommon, we ask every member to telephone us in to verify the first transaction to a new payee. And it's just because of that, because of the anti-fraud measures that we have in place, which can be cumbersome if you would just want to transfer money quick, but in the long run, it saves people money. I suppose, Seamus, is there any way of actually protecting your card? You know, there's wallets out there on sale that are deemed to be protective of a card's details. Do you think they make any difference, or what's your advice to protect your card to our members and followers?
I suppose my general advice would be, consider your card and your PIN as if they're money. Protect them to the same extent that you would if it was a €50 note. That is the access point for anybody to your bank account. So don't leave it in a place, don't leave it in public view. Don't be leaving it in your back pocket where it's easy to be taken out. Don't ever leave your PIN and your card in the same, and that does happen. Don't be giving your PIN number to third parties, and just generally be aware of the fact that your card needs to be secure at all times and on your person. If you're going to an ATM machine or a point of sale, if you notice anything suspicious, don't use that machine. Don't use that device.
When you say suspicious now at an ATM machine, is there anything specific that people should look out for?
Well, I think certainly as the mechanism for where the card goes into the machine, which is the card reader device, if you notice anything extra or additional that you've never seen before or what looks unusual, then definitely, if you notice or if you hear an unusual sound coming from the machine before you've put the card into the machine, that sometimes can be an indication. Okay. If any part of the outside of the machine looks loose or looks like it's been tampered with, use a different machine.
Okay, very good.
There's usually plastic covers now on ATM machines. That's there for good reason. It's there to ensure that if there's a camera, if there's been a hidden camera over the keypad that can record a person's PIN, the cover is there to hide the PIN. So don't lift the plastic. They're there for your protection. Use them.
God, even listening to you talking there, like we are just realised, well, it's not just realising, but fraud has got so sophisticated. It's ever evolving. Do you think AI is going to make a big difference to fraud and the level of fraud that we will see in the
we're seeing it already. I mean, what I would say, and is just to give people confidence, is whilst fraud seems like it's increasing, it isn't actually increasing to the extent that the level of transactions are increasing. So now that's not to say that there isn't emerging trends all the time and that there's new, such as the mom and dad or the invoice interception or redirection that we see all the time. So there's bad actors out there and they're constantly coming out with new ways to try and get ahead of things. But fraud is not something that people should be constantly concerned about. They just need to be aware of it. It shouldn't stop you from doing your normal day-to-day activities. Financial institutions have a duty, and they take that duty very seriously to make sure that they put the best protections they can. AI is part of that. So rules are constantly being updated. Things are changing all the time as these trends emerge to make sure that that financial institutions are ahead of the curve. Where you will see sometimes is if there's been certain events like a natural disaster, or even at a local level where you might see a fundraising event and all of a sudden, or you see a competition and all of a sudden you see fake websites being put up where sometimes fraudsters from outside the jurisdiction are even looking at a local level, in a local parish in Ireland, they're looking at an opportunity to produce a fake website that people can go into. And we've seen that, and I've seen examples, not thankfully for any credit union members, but I have seen examples where consumers have thought that they were buying lotto for the local club, or thought they were entering into a local win a house competition, that sort of thing. And unfortunately, those phones, we've seen scenarios, I've heard scenarios, I haven't seen, thankfully, with our cardholders, but I've seen scenarios where tragedy, fundraising because of tragedies, or because somebody might be sick, or even natural disasters internationally, where people prey on that.
Yeah.
So look, I would just say to people, you have to live your life, but just pause for a breath. Does this look real? Am I taking all the protections that I need to do? If it looks too good to be true, probably isn't. If somebody's asking you to do something that's out of kilter, that is not normal, take a step back from it. Never share your details over the phone. If somebody rings you purporting to be from the credit union or from your bank, and they're asking you to download an app, then tread very, very carefully. There should be no reason why any financial institution, credit union or bank or building society or any other institution should need you to have an app immediately downloaded onto your phone while they're waiting on the other end of the phone. And there's always the opportunity to terminate that call and proactively contact the financial institution yourself.
Yeah, and that theme is coming across the more research we do in our preparation for, Fraud Awareness Week. Nothing is that urgent.
Nothing generally is that urgent, that it can't be checked and re-verified in 5 minutes.
And Seamus, all these questions are going through my head now as you're talking. It's bringing more questions. Do you think, like, we love cash in Roscommon, and you can't always have cash on you, despite the ATMs all around the county. But do you think it makes a difference whether you're paying by card or you're paying by Google Pay or Apple Pay? With obviously, you need your card to have those in operation. But do you think it makes any difference? Are you any more secure by paying with a physical card versus your Google or Apple Pay?
I suppose what I would say is Apple Pay and Google Pay, you should still treat every transaction with the same level of scrutiny, to make sure that you're not doing a transaction that you're not intending, or that you're not on a spurious website. But in terms of actually using the wallets, they are very secure. They are quicker. They eliminate the need for you to have to put your PIN number in, and they use biometric authentication. So to that extent, they are more secure. We would absolutely recommend, if you're traveling outside of Europe, where European consumers are very fortunate that they have protections under legislation, under payment services directives. So that imposes obligations on financial institutions to ensure that there is fraud prevention measures in place. Outside of Europe, those protections vary, and the quality of technology that's being used by retailers and merchants isn't always the same across the world. So if you are going abroad, we definitely would recommend that you enroll for Google Pay or Apple Pay. It is a more secure method, particularly if at merchant terminals. And it also provides a contingency if you were to ever lose your wallet, or your wallet was to be stolen, where your physical card was no longer in your person, that you have that backup as well.
No, that's great. That's brilliant advice, Seamus. I suppose just to wrap it up, what would be the main advice pointers that you would give to our followers and members in terms of protecting their cards, their anything payments related?
I suppose just be vigilant. You have to live your life. You have to, people need to buy things. We are all consumers, and we have to, we have to consume, and we have to purchase, and we have to spend our money. But just, pause for a breath. Don't necessarily run in onto a website and take solace in the fact that it looks like the retailer.
Given the time of year,
there's a huge amount of spend between now and Christmas, from the middle of November to probably the third week in December is high spend season. Huge amount of online trading, huge amount of spend in local merchants as well, which is lovely to see. But just make sure that you take a breath and that you understand what you're signing up to, that you also understand the terms and conditions of what you're signing up to, that you understand if there's cancellation or return policies. Now, there is certain protections for consumers where they're buying with a card, where they purchase something that is not, where the goods are faulty or where the goods are not as described. But you shouldn't have to rely on that. It is the onus on each cardholder to make sure that they do the transaction and they do due diligence on that transaction. So just make sure and do your homework on it. No deal is so good that you need to buy it this absolute second. If there's countdown clocks telling you that, that there's a deal and that deal is going to run out in 30 seconds, maybe you're better off not doing that deal. The sense of urgency sometimes can be a red flag. Outside of that, be very careful when you're wiring money. Be very careful if you're getting a contact that's unsolicited. And be extremely vigilant if somebody from a financial institution, including credit union, contacts you. We're very fortunate in Ireland that most people who do business with a credit union will know, or they will have some awareness of the people, the team inside the credit union, and there's quite a close knitness and a tightness between membership and staff. There's nothing wrong with saying, listen, I'm going to ring you back in 5 minutes. There's nothing wrong with maybe making a comment that, around, trying to elicit the familiarity. So if somebody's purporting to be from Roscommon Credit Union, 9 times out of 10, the members will know somebody. You can always make a comment that will, determine whether that person is genuinely from Roscommon Credit Union or not, through local knowledge or whatever it is. So just, I think the real advice I give people is just be vigilant, right? We have to live our lives. Trust in the fact that financial institutions are there to act in your best interest. They are there to ensure that your funds are safe. But you do, as consumers, you do have an obligation yourself. Protect your card, protect your bank account. Protect it in the same way you'd protect it if it was money sitting in your wallet, right? Don't leave those things hanging around, and just be very careful.
No.
Yeah.
Seamus, that has been brilliant advice for our followers and members, and we're so grateful that you took time out of your busy day to come down and talk to us and come to your offices. Thanks very much.
Not at all. Yeah. Thanks for coming.